Hmm. Shoot. I started recording too soon. Start streaming, start recording. Time is 11:13 a.m. December 1st. This is my second round of community service stream today. Doing my last 2 hours for the day. Eating some jerky. Melody says, onwards! Yeah. Oh, just got done running those errands. Was gonna make myself something to eat, but I already had like a small serving of beans and cornbread, so I think I'll be good. I'm just snacking on some jerky right now. In the background, I'm also trying to compile yesterday's videos because I haven't uploaded any of them yet. I'm trying to compile them on this computer's onboard video editor, and it's exporting right now, but it's fucking slow. I wonder if it's. I wonder how it does it. Does it like kind of like do like process the whole video, then start exporting it? Because I'm wondering if like is the beginning portion really slow, or just gonna be is it really slow, and then after it processes videos, them, and then it goes really fast afterwards. I don't know. It's gonna be this slow throughout the whole process. I don't really think it's worth it. Maybe I should just combine the last 2 hours, just make a like compile those videos, because the last 2 hours are chopped into 3 videos because I had to keep restarting the stream because of the. Oh shit. And I guess my stream died for a little while. Fucking hell. And I don't know why it kicks back on, but it overshoots the kilobyte rate that I set it at. Like it way overshoots it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I should just end this exporting. It's taking fucking forever too. I'll just close this project for now. All right. Excuse me. Let me close Google Chrome too. I was gonna play like well, you know what? As an experiment, I'm gonna go ahead and play these stories. I got I got some of that spice from the beef jerky in my throat. It's no man's land beef jerky, hot, and I think one of the spicy flakes ah is trying to go down the wrong tube. But okay, that's better. I'm gonna go ahead and play these spooky stories because it's just the one tab that's open, just the one window. It's not multiple tabs like I usually have, like with my email and email, YouTube, and social media sites. So yeah, let's go ahead and play this. See how it goes. There you go. Story time. Spooky story time.
Hello. This will be the first time writing this story down, and likely the last as well. I have moved on, hopefully, now that the place I was working at has, finally, and due to reasonable concerns, closed down. I usually spend my time over at TG, but I feel like not only might there be an interest here on X, but maybe also a reassuring word on how I handled the situation. There are no IDs on this board, so I will trip with Hyacinth, because he is a great character in Greek mythology, and that is X enough, I hope. I'll start now, yeah? I'm a 24-year-old male kindergarten teacher and nurse. Yeah, OP is a friend for real this time. And the following account happened in a time frame from February 2011 to January 2012. I'm not a great writer, but I hope you will get that this happened over a year, and as terrible as it wasn't like a 90-minute horror movie. But I will try to explain it all in detail. In February 2011, I moved to a new state after working as an early years educator for about 2 years. But I fell in love with someone and relocated. I found a new job that combined what I had initially learned, nursing, with my passion for working with kids. I was hired as a caretaker in a psychiatric hospital for kids and teens. It's by far not as spooky as it sounds. It's, on one hand, sad, and on the other hand, very tense, because a lot of the kids are in there for aggression management or PTSD related behavioral patterns, but also various types of depression. In the time that I worked there, there were no psychos, and by that, I mean no one was just straight up nuts. Just troubled creatures, sad as that is. I have to straight up say that the place was shit. Mismanaged, highly unorganized, and overall, not good on the doctor's side. On the nursing side, everyone was overworked and, later, accusations against patient
Oh,
abuse, though I haven't witnessed any, may have been.
Melody saying, while things are quiet, drop that computer guy. A shout. Okay, there. There we go. Got that out of the way, and now we'll just see what he says.
Likely, but not because people working there were evil,
Yes, I'm a beanie
but
bear.
handling patients on their very limit constantly due to
My
misguided
hair is
leadership
just going all
and
wild back
organization.
there.
I worked way too much as well, but I, even after what happened, loved the job and was happy to get to know a couple of extremely intelligent, creative, and sensitive kids, as often the case with unstable souls. I did night shifts every other week, while in the weeks I worked during daytime. I was quintessentially a play pal, playing board games, music, crafts, you get the gist. Great stuff, as I believe certain games can help with dealing with stress, while others can give you back concentration, or even self esteem. There were two patients I spent a lot of time with, and who I will call Andy and Laura, who were in the hospital during the entire time of this written account. Andy is 9, Both parents died early in his childhood. Superhero potential, who was in hospital because of dissociative episodes and severe depression. And Laura, a 13-year-old Aspie who suffers from PTSD and severe nyctophobia after getting lost in the woods and recovered a whole week later. There were plenty of other kids, obviously, but these two have a place in my heart. The hospital itself closed down now, must have been there for at least 60 years, and some of the games you could still find are proof of that. Cell phones and so on are forbidden for patients, so everyone had to make do with Monopoly and whatnot. I would say February was fun, actually. A thrill, a new job, living with boyfriend. It was great. In mid March, things started to be different. The hospital was being rightfully blamed by many. The people working started to hate it there even more, and the kids got wilder and sadder because they obviously picked up on it. I went to great lengths to make it better, bought new games for my own, cleaned up the toy storage, found a few cool things, but threw out a lot of crap and broken things, basically ending up with a couple of board games and glitter, making room for toy cars and a playhouse and new card games. The kids loved it, and I loved playing certain games thinking Risk is good for focus, Jenga for nerves, Uno is social, and etc. I had the first dream the day after I did the spring cleaning.
Thank you, love.
In the dream, everything was a weird vision of my apartment,
He says,
and me
this
and my
way,
partner had
I
adopted
won't have a
Andy.
chance to forget
I woke in the
about it.
dream because I heard a glass or candle falling over on our glass couch table. Andy slept in the middle. I looked to see if he had woken up, but he slept, and so I went into the living room. What I saw was so
Top panel
unsettling
flip. I think the
that I
top
woke
canine
up
teeth
right
could
away
be a
with the
bit
picture
longer and
burned into my mind.
spikier.
It was such a
Spikers.
strong image. A boy of maybe 7, with white skin and
Top
very
canine
dark
teeth.
shadows around
These
his eyes,
ones.
apparently naked except for white socks. He was seemingly flowing mid-air in a bathrobe that was 3 times too big.
Oh, I
The
still want to
bathrobe
keep them
seemed
a little
cramped though,
rounded
with even the pockets
for the sake
bulging.
of like just kind of being
It was
cartoony.
fucking strange.
I
No
don't
other
want to
way to
make
say
them
so.
like.
I was left with a weird feeling
I
of
don't want to
guilt
make them look
or
razor
maybe
sharp.
caution. Bathrobe Boy kept appearing in my dreams, without it getting any different from the first time. I dreamt of him at least twice a week. Maybe a month later, when I did a night shift, I saw Andy suffering from sleep paralysis. It was terrible, and I could barely wake him up. He felt strangled, as it appears to happen frequently, Wikipedia tells me, and he insisted a boy tried to kill him. It hurt me to see him get worse. You see, I'm not freaking out. Things like this are normal in an environment like this. So, it took too long for me to realize that something wasn't right. And this is what haunts me the most, that I could have opened my eyes earlier and prevented pain, but I didn't see it for a long time. Throughout April and May, both Andy and Laura appeared to not make any progress, but instead get worse, and both had nightly terrors. Some I was there for, some, unfortunately, not. In late May, Laura suffered from sleep paralysis every night, so much so that we had to put her on medications to ensure she got enough sleep. Sleep
He
is
says
really important to ensure
spikers.
balanced hormonal levels and lessen depression,
Uh,
which seemed to get worse for
Team
Laura by the day.
4-star reference.
She slept then, and up until August, even though everything in the hospital started to fuck up, it was a normal day-to-day kind of vibe. Until August 16th. I played some Jenga with Andy and Laura before they went to bed, stopping after one round because it was just
What's
too
next?
hyper, you know?
Spiders?
Not the game to play before you sleep.
Spikes?
Then ate something
Spiders
real
with
quick and
spikes?
then started to read some Beckett. I loved it.
Spikers.
Around 4 a.m., I took a walk through the rooms, and luckily, I saw Laura. She was sleeping, but after 10 seconds, I realized she couldn't breathe. I turned on the light, only to find she was basically blue. In absolute panic, I checked and went for CPR, thinking she might have had respiratory problems because of the meds. She didn't respond to it, and after about a minute, I picked her up, calling a standby doctor. It was in the moment I had her in my arms that she took a breath and woke up. She started to cry, and so did I. The doctor arrived and checked her out, asking me to fetch her details, to see how much medicine she was given and etc. As I walked down the hall and turned to the door, I saw him. I saw the reflection of the boy in the bathrobe, floating, but for the first time, he had open eyes, looking at me. I freaked out, screamed. I clearly was overly tired. Night shifts fuck with you, especially when they are as fucking intense to begin with. My screaming woke up at least 3 kids. I was a bit overwhelmed by it all and started to cry. I was excused and asked to take a week off the next day, after being lectured that I should not invest this much feeling into certain kids. And, although painful, it was true. I really cared for these 2. I came back after a week of chilling with my man, who was worried sick as
Melody
well,
says,
especially after
bravissimo.
I told him about these reoccurring dreams. I tried to keep my distance from A and L, though I couldn't ignore them either because it would have
Friday's
hurt them.
cheddar pork
Before I
skins.
finished work,
Yeah,
Andy came
cheddar,
up to give me a hug
cheddar and bacon pork
and said
skins.
the strangest thing. I was really confused and
I
wanted
like
to know
these
what he meant,
snacks.
but he stopped there and didn't want to talk anymore. These words lingered with me till November, even though everything normalized itself and we all were back to normal. Normal. Well, as normal as it gets in an environment of that kind. Sometime in November, the 18th to be precise, it was Andy's birthday. I made him cookies and we all had cake and played all sorts of games. I finished work at 6, but puppy eyes made me stay till 7 to play a game of Twister as referee, and Jenga, which
I
I
haven't brushed my
intentionally
hair
lost.
yet this morning.
For one, to make Andy happy, but also to call it a day. I said goodbye, met up with my man for a pastrami sandwich, and fell into bed at 1. The next thing that happened was without a doubt the thing that scared and scarred me most in my life. I woke up and within a second, I realized I couldn't move. I couldn't even move my head. But I felt something was there. As fast as a fucking bolt of lightning, something went straight for me. I felt something wrap around my neck and tighten. And then I saw his face.
That's better.
The floating boy 2 inches away from my face. Dark eyes looking at me.
Melody's
hate.
talking about her delicious
Full
chili
of
potato
blame.
skins.
I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe.
You should come over
He
and
came
make me
closer
some,
and
love.
whispered, "Stop." Suddenly, his face replaced by my boyfriend's, shaking me. I could breathe. I could move. I couldn't sleep. I was shaking for the rest of the night, unable to speak. I took Saturday off to have 2 days of recovery and return on Monday. All I wanted was to tell the 2, this. Ridiculous. What? So, this was me, an adult, wanting to tell a secret to 2 kids. I waited till lunch and made sure to sit with them. I just said it, like it happened. The boy with the belt came to me at night. Both kids were unfazed. Andy said, "You're a loser, Anon. Have you ever been insulted by a kid? It strangely hurts." Laura kept to herself when I asked her who he was and why he tried to strangle me. I felt batshit crazy. I can't put it into words. I was on the verge of madness. When I cleaned up the table, Laura came up to me and said, "I'll tell you later." Okay, I thought with cold sweat above my lip. But she didn't. She played by herself, not wanting company. I left work on time and went home, made dinner, and got ready for bed. I took my book from my bag, not Beckett anymore, I can't remember, to read some. And inside I found a drawing. A drawing that disturbed me and probably will do so for the rest of my life. It was just a kid's drawing, but what it implied was fucked up. I will attach the picture. I don't have a scanner, but it'll have to do. If the Jenga towers fall, he gets strangled. When you lose, you kill him. I lost the other night. He seeked revenge. I have heard about fucked up stuff that happened there in the past, but this fucked up? Kids killing kids. In a way, so sadistic. Not even sure if this is appropriate for this board, but I'm not sure where else to put it.
This is a weird
So enjoy.
story. It's confusing.
This is a true story. In fact, any of you who are fans of space games may have heard about this person it happened to, but you haven't heard the full story. And I'm withholding his name since he never gave me permission to tell the story. So he can always just deny it, and nobody can prove he's lying. A friend of
How
mine is a
convenient.
computer programmer. A few years ago, he decides that he can do a better job designing a space game than anyone else has. So he got to work doing just that. He came up with an idea for a game where all of the content is generated randomly, based on code constraints written into the engine and a pseudo random seed variable. To the non programmers in the room, normally to create a game, you have to build a 3D engine or use an open source or licensed engine created by others. Then create all the things that go into the game: characters, vehicles, plants, stars, moons. Instead of all of that, he created the engine, then taught it to take random information and turn it into all of those things. It's called procedural content generation, and the idea isn't new. It's used in tons of games, but normally it's procedural content mixed with created content, or created content distributed procedurally. Not this time. Everything in this game is built by math and code. Everything. Space stations, spaceships, and even alien races. Each with distinct cultural predilections and all. One might be a hostile warrior race, one might be a friendly trade based species. The point was, the game creates the races by randomly choosing attribute levels. The AI for the aliens were based on these attributes, such as aggression, curiosity, intelligence, and etc. And they were all procedurally generated. You could discover, make contact with, do business and trade, invade, kill them all, whatever. Each was totally different from the next, but all were based on the same code. It's a very economical and cool way to create more content than any game should be able to hold. I even asked him after the first alpha release how he got so many different forms of AI.
Okay. I still don't know much about programming yet. I'm like still just scratching the surface. But to state that everything in your game is procedurally generated just based on whatever algorithm you give it, that's just like way too far out there. He's like saying like everything, like the races, the worlds, the space stations, everything is procedurally generated based on like the math and like algorithms you put in there. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. It's like oh, okay, I want to make a game. Let me put all this math and these algorithms together. Then when it's all done, I just got to hit the auto create button and let the procedural generator, based on all the algorithm and math and variables and everything that I pumped in there, just generate all these race species, all these worlds, and all these like space stations without me having to design anything. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I still don't know much about programming and whatever, but like to say that everything in your game and your world is like procedurally generated is just freaking nuts. Like I've heard of like environments such as like plants and trees being procedurally generated based on like algorithms and like variables and whatever. So that way, like a background designer for a game, like an environment designer, doesn't have to like design each and every bush that you see in a landscape or each and every tree either. It's like they have it procedurally generated, and it's like they give the program the math and whatever, and like, okay, this landscape here, I want this type of foliage on this particular hill, and you start the procedural generation, and then it starts going, and like all of a sudden you have this hill like full of like grass and maybe some shrubs and bushes and like a tree or two or something, because like you give the algorithm like the details of like trees grow in sort of like this with some of these variables, or little shrubs or bushes grow like this and like with various like variables of like strands of leaf and branching and whatnot. But to like say like everything is procedurally generated, the race species, the planets, the yeah, that's just too much. That's a lot. And like to like does that mean like all the collision objects and everything are procedurally generated, and just like the terrain? It's that's a real stretch right there. Melody says the best thing to result from botch programming: explosions. Ooh, earlier you were talking about chili stuffed bell peppers. Babs, can you just hurry up and move in with me so you can start cooking all this amazing food that I can taste and eat? It's like cooking off of your recipes. That's like it's still delicious, but I'd still like to taste things like cooked by by you yourself. I think it would be that much more delicious because you make them sound so good. Anyway, yeah, this programming thing, like even though I don't know much about programming, I just know like a very scant little bit. But to claim like everything in this game, everything is procedurally generated, yeah, that's a real stretch right there. Anyway, let me
At such a high
start back
level,
up.
so
I'm backing up a bit.
so he got to work doing just that. He came up with an idea for a game where all of the content is generated randomly, based on code constraints written into the engine and a pseudo random seed variable. To the non programmers in the room, normally to create a game, you have to build a 3D engine or use an open source or licensed engine created by others. Then create all the things that go into the game: characters, vehicles, plants, stars, moons. Instead of all of that, he created the engine, then taught it to take random information and turn it into all of those things. It's called procedural content generation,
That's just
and the
way too
idea isn't
much.
new. It's used in tons of games, but normally it's procedural content mixed with created content, or created content distributed procedurally. Not this time. Everything in this game is built by math and code. Everything. Space stations, spaceships, and even alien races. Each with distinct cultural predilections and all. One might be a hostile warrior race, one might be a friendly trade based species. The point was, the game creates the races by randomly choosing attribute levels. The AI for the aliens were based on these attributes, such as aggression, curiosity, intelligence, and etc. And they were all procedurally generated. You could discover, make contact with, do business and trade, invade, kill them all, whatever. Each was totally different from the next, but all were based on the same code. It's a very economical and cool way to create more content than any game should be able to hold. I even asked him after the first alpha release how he got so many different forms of AI at such a high level of sophistication, and he rattled off something about natural selection that was way over my head. He said that they evolve. Soon the NPCs started acting strangely. The platform crashed one night while he was in combat with a few of them. When he started to back up, he warped back to the location and found the NPCs he'd been fighting just sitting there in space. When he ran around,
Oh, Melody says usually mine has lots of love, care, swearing, and occasionally spilt beer in it. Yes, that food sounds delicious. Let's move in together as quick as possible after my probation, just so I can have some of that delicious, good food that you make. Mmm.
radiometric analysis, it appeared they were running intense scans of the exact spot where he'd been when the game crashed. Others had gathered to join the search. One was a new kind of vessel we'd never seen before. A tactical analysis showed it was equipped with high quality sensors and was classified a science vessel. He shrugged it off as a ghost in the machine and kept working. He would perform upgrades to the item manufacturing engine about once a week. When he did, it often ended up producing higher quality items from the same materials. And many of the items that were already created and being bought and sold on alien markets were suddenly obsolete. One week, he went to make the changes, and he noticed that several NPCs had sold all of their assets at discount prices the day before. He again shrugged it off as a coincidence and began the upgrade. The following week, he went to do the upgrade, and the same NPCs had managed to short sell a large quantity of high quality items that were about to be made obsolete. The NPCs had started to notice the changes he was making to the game and anticipate them. Now,
I'm calling bullshit on this story. I hate when they claim like, "Oh, this story's real," but then like it's just too far beyond belief. I mean, a completely procedurally generated world with generated vehicles, races, characters, vehicle. What did I already say? Vehicles? I think so. This is just like a pretty far stretch to begin with, but then like right now he's alluding like the procedural generation of some of these characters somehow procedurally generated like an AI, which is slowly but surely becoming cognitive in a sense. And it's like, okay, yeah, yeah, no, no, I don't believe it. Your stories are creepier when they have the element of like, oh, could it be true? Oh, it might be true. Oh, it sounds so creepy if it is. But even if it isn't, it's still pretty creepy. But this one is just like, yeah, like this random jackass programmer is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna create a space game, and it's gonna be nothing but like procedural generated art designs and everything. I'm just gonna punch in a bunch of code and algorithms and variables, this and that, and just hit the go button. Go. It's just it's just stupid. This the story sounds stupid. Uh, Melody's ass or like talking about good cooking, like her beer battered onion rings. Oh god. It reminds me of like a spoof commercial I wanted to do a long time ago, where it's like you see like a anthropomorphized chicken like making dinner, and it's like a obviously like a female chicken like making dinner like done up in an apron and everything, and then you hear like someone like pulling up in the driveway, and then they open the door and you get the sense like, oh, her husband's home. And so like the husband comes in and like his head is just like this can of beer. And then during dinner, there's just like this big argument, and then the husband just starts mercilessly beating his chicken wife, and just like leaving her in tears as the husband just kind of like stomps off to bed or whatever. And like you see the chicken wife just kind of like whimpering and just like moaning as she's like just crying her eyes out in the kitchen after getting like slapped around. And then in the foreground you see like the words come up like beer battered chicken now at Crapplebee's. Yeah, anyway, that's what it reminded me of. It was just a stupid. It was just a stupid visual like commercial gag joke. Melody's like saying, "Oh God, it is the start of the obsolete album. Oh, like where technology takes over." Yeah, this story is just like too far beyond belief. It's like, yeah, you got the random jackass who's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a freaking top notch space game. I'm just gonna make everything all procedurally generated. I just gotta punch in all this code, blah blah blah, this and that, hit the go button, and oh, create this world, and then like somehow the procedural generation gets out of hand and creates like artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. But yeah, like as I was saying, like right now it seems like the the procedurally generated AI is bordering on the verge of cognitive thought because they're going through weird actions and like anticipating the programmer's actions in events. It's just okay. I am over the story right now, but I'll keep listening just to hear how dumb it gets.
In the world of video games, AI is a misnomer. It's not really AI. If real AI was as smart as you or me, these AI were about as smart as ants. They know just enough to suck at one video game and do nothing else. The idea that they can identify and anticipate trends in human behavior is like an insect successfully guessing where you'll eat dinner in a week. It is, quite simply, far beyond their capabilities. Yet, it seemed to be happening.
That's just a weird analogy. It's like an insect guessing where you'll be eating in about a week. Why would an insect do that? It's just like I get the analogy, but it's a dumb one.
But it wasn't over. Soon, alien races started working together, more than just the cooperative ones. For the first time in the game, naturally hostile aliens started working in parallel with friendly ones. And almost overnight, all of them became hostile to him. They worked together to amass large fleets of sophisticated warships and track him through space, trying to kill him. He ended up having to make his ship invulnerable while testing the game because every time he would log in, they would find him as quickly as they could and attack him. Once he made himself invulnerable, they stopped attacking him, but they continued to watch every move he made. About a month later, he'd made changes to the combat system, and to test it, he made his ship vulnerable again, with the expectation they would attack him. They didn't. He attacked them, they didn't retaliate. He called me up to log in to test the changes instead. As I was playing with him, we were chasing each other through an asteroid field and fast moving frigates. I had a good idea where he was, down to about a 180-kilometer radius. So I was looking at each rock individually, as the old movie trope of a ship hiding behind an asteroid is actually a pretty good strategy in this game. While looking, I would take pot shots at asteroids here and there, and write little messages on them with my blasters, like, I'll find you, and I drew a dick on one of them for shits and giggles. Anyway, I found him and chased him out, hot on his tail, and when we got to the edge of the asteroid field, there was a massive alien fleet that had been sitting there, watching the entire time. He told me to ignore them and that he was working on keeping them from following players around, but he couldn't find anything in the code that was making them do it. All I heard was, ignore them, and I said, okay, and opened fire on them. The moment I did, they all aggroed on me and killed me instantly. We were both laughing pretty hard, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. 2 days later, he called me on Skype and told me to log in and warp to his location. I did. He told me to take a close look at the alien space station that had just been constructed in
Hey,
orbit
get
above
down
the
from there,
planet that he was at. When I did, I didn't
fat
understand
Jack.
at first the significance of what I was looking at. The space station had written on it, in my handwriting, if you can call it that, I will find you, and a picture of a dick. I said, why did you put that on a space station? And I will never forget the haunted tone in his voice when he said, I didn't. Incidents like this continued. We both started scrawling little messages on moons and asteroids when the aliens were around, and he would see them pop up later in alien ships and structures. There's a planet in the game where the NPCs have built cities in the shape of random letters and numbers, and one with the phrase, all praise be to his name, which he had scrawled on a moon as a joke. But when he saw it for the first time, scrawled on a massive planet with structures, a giant monument to him as the god of the universe, he suddenly didn't find it that funny anymore. In the
So
process of doing
dumb.
research, my friend came across an article about a scientific idea called simulation theory, which states that any universe capable of giving rise to intelligent life, e.g., ours, will necessarily do so many times over. Each intelligent life form will end up making simulations, e.g., video games, and as such, as their simulations grow in complexity, they can become indistinguishable from reality, e.g., the Matrix. Now, because there is at least one universe
Oh,
capable of this,
you
ours,
referenced the
by the
Matrix. That's
mediocrity
so
principle,
deep.
there must be many. And if each has many forms of intelligent life capable of creating simulated
It's like I still enjoy the Matrix. I like the movies for what they are, but then when people try to like make their own variation of the story, an idea, and then just reference it, also go about referencing it. It's just, oh God, this story is cringe. It's cringeworthy. But I don't have much right to really poke fun at it because I haven't published any of my stories for a long time because my writing still needs some work. But you know what? I think I can still call a bad story a bad story. And this story is bad.
universes, then the number of simulated universes must be infinitely higher than the number of real.
Melody's saying, "Get the boomstick." Surprised the fat sod can even jump up on anything. Oh, I think I missed that part where I guess one of the characters in the story jumped up.
Universes, if there even is such a thing. Therefore, the simulation theory is really the theory that it is infinitely more probable that we live in a simulated universe than it is that we live in a real one. My friend became fascinated with this idea and could not help but notice the similarities to what he was doing. All of those creatures inside were incapable of imagining their true place in the universe, but they were perfectly capable of being curious about it. He reasoned that even a simulation designed to be far more realistic would contain creatures that were completely oblivious to the fact that they were just code in a text file somewhere. But if confronted with evidence that the world is not as they see it, they either become fascinated or terrified. The idea that he could be an NPC in a video game on some computer mainframe somewhere got to him. It consumed his days and nights.
That would have to be like a freaking boring ass video game, more boring than Sims. Because if we did live in like a Sim esque Matrix universe, I think you'd see like a lot more people doing fucking weird shit. It's like people do weird shit in general, but I think they'd be doing a lot more like more interesting things and trying to be more successful. I mean, if I were like a freaking game avatar, like I think the user playing as my avatar would have rage quit a long time ago. Because what's the purpose of my life is like what when you play the Sims, it's like you try to make your sim like the happiest sim there can be. You try to make your sim successful, get a job, get married, have kids, work out, this and that, and you just like control every aspect of what your sim goes through. But fucking, if my life were a video game and I was like a sim or something, that'd be fucking hella boring. And like so this story is just like friggin' Lame. Oh, Melody was referring to Fat Jack earlier. Yeah. Du-du-du-du-du. Let's see. Melody was saying other things. Melody has said when people try to make something deep out of what's meant to be entertainment, like a freaking Jedi religion, etc., seek help. Oh my god. People like fucking trying to say, like, claim Jedi as a religion. Oh shit. I would not doubt people would try to like turn QAnon into a religion. That's not too far out of like all the stupid shit like people have been believing lately. It's like fucking. I could imagine some of these nut jobs building a QAnon church. Like if life right now is if this reality is a simulation or a video game, it's like a stupid people simulator. That's what it is. It's like SimCity. Like you build up this whole culture and everything, townships, cityscapes, country, and then when you have everything built, get bored. Okay, let me see what happens when I just throw in a bunch of stupid people. Let's see what decisions they'll make then. Fucking false claims of scam elections, rigged votes, this thing called QAnon, and then the stupid people keep going. And I wouldn't put it too far out of the realm of um, things like possibility of like people building like a QAnon religion. My God, it's like it's already a cult as it is. It's like they may as well go the next step and just build a church out of it. Freaking idiots. uh, Melody says, sound like a video game version of reality TV. People sitting in a house, watching people sitting in a house. Yes. Oh, God. That realization just kind of like, oh, it's so true. It hurts my head. Just like people living vicariously through these other people on TV. Just this reality television. But, and really, it's all just scripted and everything. But God, fucking stupid. Why are people so stupid? In life, I have no religion besides the heavy metal gods. Yes. Anyway, back to the story.
He could no longer focus on his work, and he ended up having a nervous breakdown
Let me
and
skip
abandoning the
back a little bit.
project. And he days in some computer mainframe somewhere got to him. It consumed his days and nights. He could no longer focus on his work, and he ended up having a nervous breakdown and abandoning the project. But not before he backed up everything to as many redundant servers as he could find. When I asked him why, he said, in case anything happens to them, to it. He's still in there. He spends all of his time there now. I guess if I were the god of an entire universe, I would probably spend all my time there too. Let me set the scene. My grandma's property sat about 2 miles down the road.
That story was so dumb. Dumb, but dumb, dumb, dumb. And this compilation is titled Eerie and Insane 4chan Stories. You should, like, fucking put in there, like, eerie and insane, in parentheses, sometimes stupid. Sometimes stupid. Because that last story was duh. Oh, weak. Weak. I put on these stories just like fucking be weirded out or creeped out, but that story was just like too far out of the scope of reality. And it's like a guy who's like into video games heard a little bit of what like procedural generation is about, and he took that vague concept and like wrote this whole story about it, like, oh, I'm going to write a story about this programmer who makes this game where everything is procedurally generated. Everything. No, no, no. Oh man. There's a fucking fly in my house.
Road from a house way out in the country.
Oh shit,
That's where
where'd it
you
go?
enter the first gate by the road. To start up the extremely narrow dirt road up the mountain, it kind of winds up the side of the mountain until you get to the top. About a 15-minute drive.
It flew off.
At the top, it's all fenced in. It's a big area with a field at the very bottom. It's on top of a mountain, so it slopes up. That field is fenced in with a wooden fence. Trees outline the field at the bottom of it, and they are very thick and covered in brush. On the field's far right side, there is a coral and very old barn. Up from the field is kind of an open logged area where the road comes through. A block foundation where my grandpa had began to build another cabin, and a really shitty cabin. It was all one room and made of plywood or something. It had one window in the very front, facing away from the field, looking toward the top of the mountain, where there was thin forest. The mountain apexed here, and the fence went on down the hill until it stopped, and became thick brush forest, like the bottom of the field on the other side. It was an extremely large fenced-in area, and the thin forest stretched on forever. You couldn't see one side of the fence from the other in any direction. I'm just guessing, but I would say 50 acres or more of mountain top. They kept it to keep their cows in the pasture field area, which was large but surrounded by trees and a wooden fence. It was surrounded by trees in the form of a G, and the little circle inside the G was sort of a sinkhole that you couldn't see from the main dirt road. Now that you have an idea of how the area looked, I'll get on with what I have to say. My grandpa died of lung cancer. My grandma, as hardworking as she is really small
Get
and
out of the trash.
able to only tend to her yard and garden.
Oh, you're
So
hungry.
someone
That's
had
why.
to feed the cows and check on them. I usually drove down after work, checked on her, and then drove up there, grabbed some feed from the barn, and fed the cows. One night, I got off work a little late, and it was getting dark, so I drove straight up to the mountain. When I got to the top to get out and open the gate into the area, I heard a cow mooing really loud. I didn't think anything of it since they usually did this, but this was really loud and sounded off. When I pulled up to the pasture, the cows were nowhere to be seen, which was weird because they usually came hauling ass when they heard me coming. I put the feed in the trough and hollered at them, but they didn't come. I figured they were just in the non-visible area of the field, remember the G shape? But I had to go check. I went to my truck and grabbed a flashlight since it was getting dark, and it was a large field. As I walked down to where I thought they were, I kept hearing that loud moo that sounded weird coming from different directions.
No!
But it didn't deter my path since I was sure they were in that part of the field. I rounded the corner, and down in the sinkhole they were all standing there, huddled up, quiet. As I walked up to them, I tried to shoo them to the barn, but they wouldn't budge. And that's when I heard another moo from the woods at the top of the sinkhole.
No!
I thought one had gotten out of the fence and was in distress. I wasn't really freaked out at this point, so I decided to investigate and to retrieve the cow. I didn't do a head count because I didn't really know how many they had. So I walked up the hill of the sinkhole where I thought the moo came from, but around the time I got to the top,
No!
I heard it again, coming from another side of the field. I walked over, hopped the fence, and shined my light through the dense woods. I was shaky from being in the woods during the dark, but not really scared. I walked back a bit in the woods and saw it. The cow standing in a little clearing, facing away from me.
Moo.
Black and white. Looked like a cow, but it was sitting down like a dog, and looked sickly. You've seen a cow that was skinny. I thought it might have hurt its back legs or something, so I strode up to it. Then, noticed something as I got closer. Its hooves. weren't hooves. It had hands on its front legs, long, thin fingers with fleshy, brittle looking fingernails. Not being able to explain what I had saw, I called out to it in hopes that it was just the dark fucking with me. Sue Kafer, come eat. At that point, about 20 yards from me in the clearing, the thing stood up on two legs and turned around. Its skin was colored like a black and white cow, but its body was nothing like it. It was tall and thin, with a strange, flat face, a large mouth, and sunken in dark eyes. I hauled ass out of the woods, tripping and stumbling over everything, my heart pumping so hard I couldn't hear anything else. When I got to the fence, I leaped straight over it and sprinted through the field to my truck. I got in, locked the doors, and started the truck, and grabbed my 380 compact from the glove box. I backed my truck down most of the thin dirt road until I got to the gate. I turned around on a steep hill, almost flipping my truck. Now facing the gate, I looked around my truck with a flashlight. I hurried and got out to unlatch the gate and swing it wide open. And on the short way back to my truck, just inside the forest beside me, I hear,
Sue Kaffer, come eat.
I got in my truck and scrambled down the mountain without closing the gate. Then, after what seemed like 200, I arrived 2 miles away at my grandma's house. I told her everything, and she just sat there calmly and said, "Sounds like a trickster." I took this as her saying it was someone playing a joke on me, and angrily left. I learned later that local Indians called shapeshifters or skinwalkers tricksters. She sold the
Mm.
cows, then the land, and I never returned. Try to pretend it didn't happen. I've saw a ghost before and had a friend with me that also saw this. I don't know what to make of that thing, though. How did that Sue Kaffer come eat sound coming from that thing? Human, but raspy, like lung cancer. Yeah, what's weird is that the next day, I was going back to my grandma's to tell her I wasn't going up there again. Fucking obviously. And this blocked her road. It was an hour trip around it, so I went home. This is what the landscape looks like around the place it happened, to give you an idea. It's not looking in the direction of the property at all, though.
Hmm. Oh, and that's the end of it. What happened to all these like spooky stories and creepy pastas? They all used to be good. Well, a lot of them used to be good. Hmm. Scary 4chan stories to relax to. 7 disturbing green text stories. Hour 27. Yeah, I'll go with the 7 disturbing green text stories.
I used to be friends with a girl who had just a dozen or so movies that she liked on her laptop.
Echo! You know what? I think I might need to take a restroom break here pretty soon. Now it's like, thank God, what a friggin' load of drivel. Yes. Yeah, it's like some of these stories used to actually creep me out before, but like it's been a while since I've heard a good one that was fairly decent. It's like some of them, like the more recent ones that I've listened to that were actually pretty creepy were reservation stories. Like stories from people who live on the reservation about creepy shit that happens to them. And some of them are, they just sound so real because they're like very similar to some of the stories that I've experienced, like firsthand, and like some of them like secondhand through some relatives, and those are the ones that just like fucking spook me out because they have all the elements of like just how like eerie stuff on the reservation takes place. And like a lot of natives don't talk about it, especially to the outside world, because that's just something that we ourselves deal with. Because like no one out there really believes a lot of these stories. Like I'm pretty sure if someone else who doesn't live on the reservation listened to those stories, would just kind of like discount them as just being too unbelievable. But some of these eerie incidences that take place on the res like actually do take place, and they're just pretty unexplainable. But you know, like just the way some of these stories were told, like kind of like written out and narrated by like a computer voice or whatever, it just struck me as really eerie and just like really raw and real to me, and it would just like really spook me out. But a lot of these stories nowadays is just ridiculous. Like that last one, the one of the like the previous one before the last one, just talking about the procedurally generated artificial intelligence where it spawned its own like cognitive like thought and processes is just, oh man, that's just so, it's so dumb because that's not possible even for like one guy to like freaking code and program all these variables and all the the algorithms necessary to even come close to like creating a procedurally generated universe is just too far out there. No, no, I don't think so. uh, but other than that, like the other stories that get on my nerves are like stories that misrepresent skinwalkers, that or like mislabel like other characters or creatures, other cryptids as skinwalkers, because like I want to like set it straight that skinwalkers aren't cryptids. Skinwalkers are people who use black magic in order to like transform into other animals utilizing animal skins. And there's nothing cool about skinwalkers. It's nothing to romanticize. Like a lot of the stories, like some of the true stories I've heard are pretty creepy, but it's nothing to like make cool, because like I've heard stories that try to like um make skinwalkers like something that's kind of like cool, like even though they're like they try to write it as something creepy but then somewhat cool. Is like, no, skinwalkers are nothing like that. And I bring it up a lot of times, like leave it as a comment on some of these stories, is like skinwalkers are not cryptids. They're for like they're generally just witches that have the ability to shapeshift because they utilize like animal skins to shapeshift into the animal. That's not a cryptid. But if like if it was like a person who does it naturally, like a werewolf, like yeah, a werewolf would be a cryptid. I would count that as a cryptid. But for a witch to like do it through like dark magic, like I wouldn't call that like I wouldn't call that being a cryptid. It's just like a witch or warlock utilizing like dark arts in order to transform. Yeah, there's nothing that says cryptid about that, because what a cryptid is like a supernatural creature of some sort, or like a cryptid is like Sasquatch or like a werewolf or let's see, well, the Rake, like stories like the Rake. The Rake is a cryptid because it's like an otherworldly or paranormal creature, and I don't like how like people are kind of get uptight about. It's like, oh, like what makes you an authority on skinwalkers? You know, it's all just imagination, bro. It's all just make believe. It's like, no, no, it's not. Especially here on the res, it's like something that's actually practiced here on the reservation. That's why we have all these like really weird and creepy stories because of like the whole skinwalker thing. Like on the reservation, it's like a real legit thing. Of course, like a lot of the creepy activity that had been going around when I first got back died down after COVID. So like I'm thinking like, whoa, shit! Like I think a bunch of these skinwalker witches, like they probably got the virus and died off because a lot of the spooky incidences that take place during the night, it really died down around then and hasn't really popped back up all that much recently. So yeah, that's nice. But I hate how like other people or writers who like vaguely hear stories about skinwalkers decide to come up with their own story and then label like the cryptid that they create as a skinwalker. Is like, no, skinwalkers are not cryptids. And some of them kind of get uptight. Is like, oh, what makes you an authority on the matter? Is like, well, skinwalkers for one thing is just like it's nothing that you think about. Well, it's nothing that you know about. What you're doing is like you vaguely heard about something here, and you decided to try to like turn it into your own thing when it's nothing like that. Uh, it's like you, the writer, have no idea what you're talking about when you're trying to make up a story about skinwalkers. And it's just like fucking stupid. And that's what it is. It's like when some of these writers try to write stories and like use the term skinwalker, it just comes off as really stupid because they don't know what they're writing about. They have no idea what a skinwalker is. They just come up with this like really creepy cryptid story and then just mislabel it as a skinwalker. And then when they do that, all credibility goes out the window and it just comes off as really lame, dumb, stupid, and you're just trying to follow some sort of like skinwalker trend because you heard one skinwalker story in your life and you thought it sounded cool and wanted to try to jump on this like weird skinwalker trend. And I just freaking hate it. But yeah, bottom line is like skinwalkers are not cryptids. They're witches that again use dark arts and black magic in order to transform into other animals. So if you're gonna write about skinwalkers, get your fucking facts straight. Otherwise, you're just gonna look stupid. Anyway, back to these stories.
Watching them over and over and over again. Many of them were popular films with significant portions edited out. She'd had a friend cut out all the scenes featuring any violence or sexuality, no matter how slight, with very few comedic exceptions. And she didn't even consider anyone's recommendations of other films, even if that friend would have edited them. She reasoned that it was because she had only ever watched those dozen or so films and wouldn't need any more since she had the edited versions of them, and that she couldn't handle anything shocking unexpectedly. Needless to say, her other friends and I all found her strange, and at times, annoying to hang out with. But at least I can say that she was by far the nicest and most honest person I've ever known. We called her Angel for reasons that should be obvious. On the evening of October 31st, 2016, a group of friends went to hang out at a park that got pretty spooky after dark. Angel lived alone in a nearby apartment complex, so when we started getting cold and decided to go indoors, we went with her. Her apartment was largely unfurnished, with the notable exception of the bedroom. The floor was entirely covered by mattresses, and there were dozens of pillows, blankets, and plushies scattered around. There were several comfy armchairs facing the TV, which sat on the top of a stool at the back of the room in front of the window. Next to it was her laptop, connected to the TV. This was where she watched her favorite movies, and had many of us watch them more than once. That night, the friend who had originally edited those films to her liking managed to convince her that we should watch scare YouTube videos. We stuck to obviously fake ghost caught on tape ones, which at least outwardly didn't bother Angel, and she said it was because she didn't believe in ghosts. An hour or so later, she said she was bored and wanted to put on Patch Adams. It was her all-time favorite film, with the edits, of course. She watched it practically daily. We had all seen it at least once before. Not the most exciting film on a Halloween night, but she couldn't be talked out of it. At this point, my best friend and his girlfriend left, but the rest of us stayed because we weren't planning on actually watching it. We would just talk about ghosts or whatever. So she double-clicked on patchadams.mp4 and the film began. She was actually watching it, but she'd seen it 1,000 times, so she also talked over it about paranormal stuff with us. Her editor friend, though, seemed like he was having a hard time focusing on the conversation. After the part where Patch holds the skeleton and says, "I have a boner," suddenly it cut to the scene, an imprint where the girl hangs upside down, with needles stuck in her gums. When she saw it, Angel screamed and backed up to the corner, hid under a blanket, and wailed in the most heartbreaking way I've ever heard the displeasure of hearing. It was like she was mourning the death of a child or something. She just kept crying and moaning no matter what we said. Even her editor friend apologized, saying it was a prank and that it was just a movie too. Before we had started watching the YouTube videos, he had replaced the Patch Adams file with a new edit that included fucked up scenes from horror movies. But already that first one was too much for Angel.
What a fucking dick, man.
Me and another friend decided it wouldn't be a good idea to leave her alone, so we stayed the night. She stopped crying eventually, but in the morning, we realized she'd pissed herself and was still shaking. We got her to drink some water, but she wouldn't say a word. Neither of us could stay, so we called her sister and told her what happened. Her reaction was like, "I'm coming, stay with her," but wouldn't explain why Angel was the way she was. The other friend left, and I waited for her sister, trying to get her to at least look at me, but she just stared into emptiness. When her sister came, she rushed to Angel and held her. I awkwardly left because I was already late, and after work, I called Angel's sister to ask if I could come by. She said it would be good, but I should be extra careful. I shouldn't even talk about what had happened, because it would only make her relive it. So I went there, and her sister explained quietly that Angel witnessed a brutal rape and possibly murder when she was only 7, and had to hide in a dumpster. She stayed inside for hours, in the pitch-black darkness, and had to walk home at night. Anything too shocking sent her mind back to that dumpster. She'd never watched a horror movie in her life. That scene and imprint sent her way over the edge. As far as I know, she never returned to normal. Last I saw her, she still wouldn't speak more than short childlike sentences, and was like a little kid. I wouldn't say she seemed unhappy, but being her friend was too hard when all she cared about were coloring books and plushies, and talked to me like I was an older family friend or something rather than a friend. It was like her memories of her friends were gone. Shortly after that Halloween night, her sister moved in to help her in her
Yeah.
daily life.
Some friends,
Her
though,
sister told me she hadn't dared to watch Patch Adams after that. A
Oh.
prank ruined her
don't
favorite
freaking
movie
shock
for
a
her.
friend like that.
Moral of the story: some people might have a reason why they can't handle horror films.
The moral of the story is don't be a fucking jackass. How's that?
2009 summer. Out on exercise with our team. Fucking middle of nowhere. It's ass. Doing standard hotshot junk and prepping for forest fires. I'm a human Smokey the Bear. Speaking of bears, goddamn, there are a lot of bears.
I gotta use the restroom. Just under 50 minutes, nerd, Melody says. Sweet! But I'm going to BRB because I gotta hit the head. Um, And I'm back. Oh, stream died for a little bit. I also went ahead and got me a few more, or a couple more slices of my anchovy pineapple pizza because no one else is eating it. I think mostly because they're adverse to the idea of anchovy pizza because they've never had it. My mom tried a small slice and she liked it. Mm. Mm-hmm. But as far as everyone else is concerned, they don't want to touch it. Melody says 30 minutes. Sweet. 30 minutes left of community service. Since I'm snacking right now. Oh, I think I'll have a Coke. I have a choice between Coke and Dr. Pepper. I'll go with the Coke. The sun will always shine, the birds will always sing. As long as there is taste, there's always the real thing. Coca-Cola Classic is always the one. Whenever there's fun, there's always Coca-Cola, yeah. I don't even know if that's how the jingle goes. Do, 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 do. Always Coca-Cola. That was ages ago. Oh, there's something in my eye. Mm. Mm. Okay. Melody says, hefty hit of spice. No, it's just, I think maybe an eyelash. Hmm. Fell in my eye or something. Okay, that feels better. Oh yeah, stories.
We've seen bears before. We're not even really worried about them anymore. Honestly, the bears might think we're one of them at this point.
Yeah, sure.
Standard safety precautions are taken. We think little of it since most of us are pretty seasoned. Nighttime comes on day 3, and we can hear bears, somewhere out there, fighting. This isn't unusual, and it doesn't rightly bother us. But then something does. The cries of an injured bear fill the air in the wee hours of the morning, followed by a piercing howl.
Hey,
Not a
boo
wolf,
boo! I
not a
twisted
deer,
my ankle.
and not a moose. No fucking idea what. Not the kind of gentleman to be shaken by the prospect of a cryptid in the woods, and also because we all, in the back of our minds I'm sure, assumed it was a moose. Foreman makes mention to the bears. If there's an injured bear out there, we need to be careful, because that means there's an even larger bear, or highly aggressive bull moose out there too, and we do not want to fight that. The day goes as normal, wood cutting, trail marking, prep, so on and so forth. We hear the occasional howl from the bear, which we know is somewhere in the area, but not
Hey,
anywhere
boo
we can
boo!
determine. Lunch mess comes around, and a crew of 4 doesn't return, with no radio contact. Assignment was to head to a nearby river tributary and collect water samples for the Department of Fish and Game. Volunteer with another 3 to go find them. Assume radio's just fucked up. Head down the river. On the way, we distantly hear that same shout from the night before. It echoes through the woods, a high-pitched, positively monstrous call, the likes of which I have never heard.
Hey, Mr.
It
Ranger,
does,
sir!
indeed, rattle us to the bone quite a bit. But being this stock of men who think with a measure of rationality, we still all firmly believe it to be a moose, or a distorted call from another large animal. We reach the river mouth and spy the crew's gear, and 2 of the crew. What are you doing? They're radio dead, sure as shit. Other 2 guys are just upstream a bit and come down. We help them pack and get moving on. As we pack up, one of them shouts out, "Holy fuck, what's that?" He points to a tree line some 200 meters opposite of us. Peeking from the tree line, just barely visible, is a head. Easily 2.5, maybe 3 meters off the ground. All that's really certain.
Yeah, I agree, Melody. This narrator sucks. He's far too staccato in his word delivery. Yeah, some of the delivery of some of these narrators are just pretty stale. I like the narrators that can actually like just really emote what the individuals are saying or thinking. But this guy's reading it as if he's like reading a shopping list.
Is that this is a massive animal. We look on in bewilderment for a moment before it ducks back in the trees. I think that's our moose.
He's like our narrator for the H.P. Lovecraft stories. Yes, that guy was great. And like the word that came to mind, like hearing the way he narrated, like H.P. Lovecraft, was opulent. And I wasn't even sure what that word meant, but I looked it up afterwards and I was like, oh, yeah, opulent. That word is spot on. Of course, I can't remember what it meant, but His voice had a very opulent quality, narrating H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah, it was like freaking badass, just like hearing that guy narrate. But this guy, though he may have some emphasis on some important words, for the most part, it's like he's reading names out of a phone book.
Big fucker, innit? RTB
Big
with crew in
fucker, innit?
tow. Informed team, we saw the moose on the opposite side of the river, and it was huge.
It was
Team makes
huge.
note. And
Hold on, let me pull up a Reddit story and let me read a little bit of it. I don't know if you can hear my stomach. My stomach's churning. It's probably because of the anchovy pizza, but it tastes so good. Okay, let me just pick. That story sounds weird. Let's go with this one. Story titled Sarah. Hey, that's my mom's name. Sarah, posted by Fig Sufficient 12 hours ago. Laura and I watched. Oh, my stomach is just going off. I don't know if you can hear that. Laura and I watched as she left the office building. A quick glance told us she was the perfect victim. Slight in build, with expensive-looking stilettos, with the red sole. The fake Louis Vuitton bag hanging off her arm would fool most people, but not me. Popping in her earbuds, she unknowingly made his job easier. As she passed right by me, I nodded to the rest of the gang further down the street. We kept up with her, only a few steps behind her. Laura motioned to Haley a few yards further down. As she passed, Haley pushed the bins, disturbing a feral cat. The screech and banging startled her. She let out a loud sigh as the cat ran past, pulling her jacket a bit tighter around her waist, and carried on walking past the bus stop. Laura looked at me with a grim expression, shaking her head. Haley shrugged, a look of disappointment on her face. Stepping in line behind us. Further, some of the sentence structure is weird. Further down, we motioned to Effie, standing at the edge of the pavement, a slight girl, a similar stature to her. Next to her, a homeless woman with a mutt. Now almost in line with her in preparation to cross the road, Effie kicked dog. I think you mean Effie kicked the dog, angering it. The dog barked aggressively, scaring her, but she kept on, tried her best to stand straight and look confident, but we could see she was panicking. A taxi rank was coming up. The hell's a taxi rank? The taxi rank was coming up. If we could just. It was our last chance. Yeah, some of the sentence structure is weird. As she crossed the road, Effie stroked the dog. Well, gross! What the fuck? Apollo. Oh, you mean pet the dog. Effie pet the dog, apologizing for kicking it and kissing its scruffy little head. Oh man. Her pace quickened as did ours. She glanced behind her. For a moment, I was certain she made eye contact with me, but that could have been wishful thinking. Rushing past the taxi rank, we knew we'd lost. The streetlights down this way were bust. She bustled on in the darkness for she bustled on in the darkness, her heart beating loudly, her breathing erratic. He stepped out of the alleyway, the knife in his hand. We stopped waiting for the inevitable. Hopefully she'd give her possessions up easily and the knife would just be used as a threat. But we knew from experience this rarely happened. She fought. She fought hard. Then she fell to the ground as he grabbed her things and ran, leaving her bleeding out in the street. We knelt down beside her, waiting for her to see her. See who? Waiting for her to see her. She tried to stop the bleeding, but as the final breath left her body, her eyes wide open, she finally saw us. We tried to warn you, Sarah. We tried. We're so sorry. She looked at us, taking us in, her eyes falling on our stab wounds. It took a second for her to register. Oh, these are all ghosts culminating around her, previous victims of this mugger. She was now, unfortunately, one of us. I reached out my hand and helped Sarah on her feet. She glanced down at her corpse. Sarah whispered, "Maybe we can save the next one." Fucking lame, man. Oh, I don't know. How was my narration? I don't know if it was any better. Melody says, "We all know Gilbert Gottfried is best narrator ever." Yes. Melody says, "I describe this guy as verbalized Morse code." Yeah. There's no warmth or texture to his voice. We all know Gilbert Gottfried is best narrator ever. Yeah. I'd like to try my hand at narration someday. I'd like to narrate good stories. That the one I just read, it's short and sweet, but it's just kind of lame. It's not really spooky or creepy. It's just, oh no, you got stabbed, and now you're just among us, the ghostly victims, and we're just going to go about trying to save the next one. Hmm. It's a cute story, but all around it's just still pretty lame. Anyway.
And we advise to stay clear of unnecessary activity by riverbank, since the moose may be there looking for females to rut, even if it is just past the season. Back to work. Night comes and the familiar sounds of Mother Nature unleashing her great titans on one another.
Night comes, and the familiar sounds unleash. I'm trying to mimic this guy, but I feel like I'm coming off as like Captain, a mockery of Captain Picard. Not Captain Picard, Captain Kirk. I'm coming off as a mockery of Captain Kirk.
Fill the air. A storm rolls in around midnight and fills the air with the echoes of a deluge of rain.
A storm rolls in around midnight. A deluge of whatever the fuck he said.
Kinds of which the Bible tells us swept away the old world. Rolling thunder filled the air, and we all learned a bit on why the bombing campaign on North Vietnam was named such a thing. And we were all left to silently.
Of all things to equate a thunderstorm to, you like think like, oh, this must have been what the bombing North Korea must have been like. Yeah, it's got to be exactly that. Despite the fact neither of us have been there, that's what we're going to equate it to. Well, what happened to all the good writers?
I wonder if the USAF's B-52s could even hope to match how loud this storm was. But even through all of that, that infernal howl filled the air, drowning out even the grandest of Mother Nature's symphonies. At one point in the night, the screams.
Don't reference symphonies. Don't write about like equating a thunderstorm to like a bombing in Vietnam, and then just like try to become all artsy by um, using like a symphony analogy with nature. You're just God. The
Which
story
had
is
slowly worked
just
their
as
way
bad
through
as
the
some of the previous
woods.
ones.
Came from what I would say was mere hundreds of meters from our camp. Within visual distance, surely.
Melody says this is heinously anus. Yes, it's very heinous in the anus.
When the day began, the storm had not subsided, but the screams had.
When the day
Our metal
began,
tests, but
the
not
storm had
cracked.
subsided.
Our foreman was more
The storm had
inconvenienced
not
with
subsided,
this
but the
than
screams
anything.
had.
Look, that damn moose is bold. We're going to erect some barriers, and we'll put down some repellent. Keep it out of the camp. Today's job orders are a standard affair, and we'll be coordinating with another hotshot trail maintenance unit
I
coming
know
through
a good
today,
repellent. Just
posting them
play
this
the
evening,
story
and on
out
their way
loud.
they'll go.
I'm assigned to the maintenance party, so we go to meet our brethren. The team meets up with us after a few short hours of work. Immediately notice they all look unsettled.
What's up, boys?
We found a set of bears about 3 clicks out.
A set?
Like 4.
4.
Dead. Mauled. Absolutely fucking destroyed.
Radio
Absolutely
foreman,
fucking
get permission to go
destroyed.
look. Team and us get a move on. We reach an area with some natural rock covering, a good place for bears to live. What we see is nothing I have ever seen before. 4 bears, 3 adults, and a single cub, over an area maybe 200 meters, all gored and mauled to death. A pair of trails leading way, the storm made mud of much of this area. One, a set of tracks headed to our camp, that of a small grizzly. The other, hooves, large, bigger than any moose print I have ever seen, by an order of magnitude. A typical moose track is 13 to 18 centimeters in length. This is easily 22 to 24 centimeters. What's more is it's slightly more rounded, implying the animal has naturally more mass to it than a moose of comparable size would. What the fuck is this thing? The bears are gored to death, heads split, intestines strewn about, chests collapsed, and the cub looks like it was simply trampled to death, maybe by the assaulter, maybe by its own, in an effort to escape. Whatever this thing is, it's fucking huge. The rest of the day goes as scheduled. Returning to camp, we see a set of barriers have been erected about 4 feet high, and a line of powder has been laid down. Repelling powder is a common part of hotshot crew kit for driving away large predators and other wildlife. Its strong odor is offensive even to humans, but even more so to the olfactory gifted. Night chow is hearty in large portions, more than normal. The night is clear and cool, and we spend time standing around mingling in our own impromptu tent city. Just before lights out, the scream is heard in the distance. A panic wave sweeps through the other hotshots.
It fucking followed us.
What?
We've been stalked by that same howl since last week.
Yeah, it
He
sounds
thought
like a
it ditched
panic
us 2
wave.
days ago. but
It
it's fucking
fucking
back.
followed us.
What is it?
We don't know. We've never seen it.
It's been here for about 3 days.
A second scream billows out from somewhere else in the woods. An immediate call is heard after.
Okay, that's enough of that. Melody's at her wit's end. Pardon. Pardon. Aside from being critical, maybe I should try to narrate some stories. See how well I do. That could be fun. Mel says you want narrator that can make the phone book sound delightful and interesting. Not this guy who could make the Ten Commandments sound like a departure lounge at an airport. Oh. Yes. Okay, my tablet keeps glitching out. But that's all right. I'll be going on break here pretty soon. Oh wait, no, I won't be going on break. I'll be done with my community service for the day, and then it'll be back on commissions. Hooray! Commissions. Melody says less than 4 minutes to go. Oh, that's right. Oh, Melody's saying call it now, dude. Less than 4 minutes to go. No, no, I can't. I can't do that. Maybe I'm just too nice of a guy. I want to. I want to give like a full ass effort in some aspects to community service. I mean, I know like I spend a lot of time recently just like ranting during my community service time, sometimes going off and doing other chores as quick as I can. But I might as well just kind of like stick around and whittle down all of the time. I want to duck out early. Man, that's looking pretty neat. I'm liking that. I am liking that. Melanie says 60 seconds to go. Man, she is on top of it. I love you, Mel. My darling, sweet Melly Mel. Bestest friend and soulmate I could ever wish for. Given up all hope of love until you came along unexpectedly. Thank you for being a friend. And that's time. All right, sweet. I hope you all enjoyed my video for what it is. Just doing some artwork alongside a lot of fucking rants. But that's just what these have become nowadays because like no one's really paying attention to this project, so I don't have to dedicate that much effort or enthusiasm toward it because I'm not getting paid for it. But as long as I put in the time and the effort, like I can still count off the hours. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed the videos for what they are. If you did like them, please follow and subscribe. If you want to donate toward this project or fund the continuation of more videos, there's a link in the section below. It'll take you to my Ko-fi page. Whether you're on Twitch or YouTube, it's still located in the section below. So click that link, it'll take you to my Ko-fi page, and there you can donate any dollar amount. If you don't do it, that's cool. But if you do, that'd be fucking awesome. And yeah, I guess that's it. Melody sharing her love. Love you too, Bebs. My darling, sweet honey kitty. So this has been Johnson Black Horse, the one and only. And until next time, I shall check you all later. Sweet. Bye.